and welcome to Treasury Notes, a show dedicated to the latest news and information from the office of West Virginia State Treasurer John Perdue. I'm your host, Gina Joynes. In 2005, state lawmakers created the West Virginia Board of Treasury Investments to make sure the state's operating funds are carefully managed. The BTI provides safe, efficient, and liquid investments for our government. Treasurer Perdue serves as chairman of that board, which now manages more than $4 billion in assets. Treasurer Perdue and his team work with external advisors and consultants to ensure your money is handled with the very best care. Joining me today to talk more about the BTI's partnerships and the investment process are Amy Michaliszyn and Nick Tripodis with Federated Securities, and we thank you both for joining us here today.
Thank you.
We're very happy to have you. Amy, Federated is one of the financial advisors for the state's Board of Treasury Investments, as we said. So tell us a little bit about your company and just the qualifications you bring to the state.
Sure, Gina, would be happy to. Federated is one of the top 10 mutual fund companies in the country and also a very large investment manager for state governments, for companies, for various types of brokers and investment advisors, any type of institutional investor who needs money management services for their customers and their employees. So we enjoy nationwide and worldwide renown at this point.
Yeah, so you guys have been working with the BTI for a while now. Nick, can you tell us a little bit about your role as an investment analyst and portfolio manager? Just tell us a little bit about what you do in that role.
Sure. I've been with Federated for 20 years. The past 10 or 12 years I've been in the fixed income area, concentrating as a credit analyst in fixed income products, and most recently I've become a portfolio manager working on the state bond fund.
All right. Amy, can you explain why the State Investment Board should work with a firm like Federated? Just explain that partnership, if you could.
Sure. You can't underestimate the value of professional management. At Federated and many other types of firms like ours employ many people, portfolio managers, analysts, traders. We have more than 86 such people on the fixed income side of Federated alone. That delivers powerful skill, economies of scale, very important qualifications to a state like West Virginia.
And as you said earlier, you're really one of the world's leading financial firms out there. So it brings a sense of credibility to the Board of Treasury Investments as well.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And local governments here in the state, as well as individuals who look to their governments to make good decisions on their behalf, can be glad that the treasurer exercises such prudence in choosing firms like ours.
You know, talking about exercising prudence, the BTI works with Federated but also works with other financial entities for different layers of review. Why is that so important, that there are different layers of this review process when you're talking about managing a state's money?
Well, that is very important, and it's the collaboration between a company like ours and a consultant that the treasurer might hire that would produce the best results, because it never hurts to have another pair of eyes looking at the investments, reviewing our work from a different vantage point. So we totally respect the involvement of consultants and are glad to work that way.
Is that typical that many states would use that kind of portfolio where you have different consultants and different advisors working together?
Of course, it's a very common structure.
Well, how does the experience Federated brings to the table help the BTI make informed decisions? Because I think that's really what it's all about, is making those informed decisions.
Well, this is one of the things I get most excited about when I think about what we bring to West Virginia, because we enjoy a really powerful presence in the public sector. And at this point, across the country, Federated is being utilized in all 50 states at either the state, county, or local level of government for investment management. And no fewer than 26 states, including West Virginia, are relying on us for bond proceeds management and liquidity management. So we understand how state governments make investment decisions. And one of the things they value is transparency. They want good, solid results achieved with a conservative bias and a transparent audit trail so they can show their constituents just what's been produced. And that's what I think is our differentiating feature.
Transparency, that's something we hear a lot about these days. The people wanting their state government to be transparent, and you feel that Federated plays a big part in that.
Exactly. Everything we do, our people, the way they work together, the processes that they use, the systems that underpin their decisions. It's all geared toward optimizing results within a conservative framework and then producing that transparent audit trail.
Okay, let's talk about how much money you manage for the BTI. This isn't a small sum.
No, it isn't a small sum. It's $550 million at this point, and the pool has the potential to grow even larger. When we began managing the pool, the assets hovered around $300 million, and we're proud to say that more and more local governments here in West Virginia have seen the benefits of it and have chosen to invest their assets.
So you have seen it grow?
Absolutely, by over $200 million.
And I'm sure that's exciting to see that it's growing, because that means people believe in what you're doing and what the Board of Treasury Investments is doing.
Yes, they do, and the pool serves a very important niche because, as you know, interest rates are very, very low. And local governments are limited in terms of the yield that they can extract from money market funds. This particular portfolio has a really important place in an investment strategy because it just reaches a little more for yield further out the yield curve and stays with really high quality investments. So governments can be sure they're adding to their yield prudently.
Can you talk a little bit about your mandate?
Well, the mandate is short-term bond pool. It operates in what we in the investment world call a 1 to 3 year space. So it means that just beyond where money market funds operate, this pool keeps its portfolio. So it's for those investors who just want a little more than what the short-term markets can deliver. And so what we look to do is to really optimize the results, but as I say, do it within a really conservative risk profile.
So people should be confident that their money is in good hands, and that you're keeping a very close watch on what this money is doing.
Yes, on a daily basis, our portfolio managers, analysts, and traders address the portfolio day in, day out, using the most sophisticated analytics. Our vigilance is very strong.
And you work very closely with all the professionals here in West Virginia that are with the BTI.
Yes, we do. We consider them to be our partners. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to work with the BTI, and we're also always excited to get out and talk to the participants who use the pool, the local governments themselves.
Nick, let's talk for just a minute about the securities. What types of securities do you invest in?
We own a variety of fixed income securities, government treasuries and agencies, corporate bonds, asset-backed securities, and mortgage-backed securities. Very high quality securities. The majority of the securities in the portfolio are AAA rated. We do own some single A rated and above rated corporate bonds, but they're very high quality corporate bonds from large Fortune 500 type of companies. We also keep the securities very short, so they're also a little bit safer and don't fluctuate in price as much because they're shorter securities.
I know Treasurer Perdue likes to talk about the fact that when the BTI is investing money, it's doing it in a very prudent way, and a very you guys are really, like I said, keeping tabs on this money, and you're making sure that we're being careful when we do these.
Yes, it's a very high quality portfolio, and we have a lot of credit analysts that follow these bonds in great detail, and we keep tabs on all the securities in the portfolio and keep a close watch on it.
So can you talk a little bit more about your investment strategy?
As Amy referred to earlier, it's really a step beyond the yield curve, a little bit beyond a money market fund. So to get an additional yield, we do own some other asset classes besides treasuries and agencies, such as corporate bonds, mortgage-backed securities, asset-backed securities. Two-year treasuries don't yield very much, so to get a little extra incremental return, you have to buy some of these additional type of securities. So that's one of our philosophies. Another strategy is to still keep the portfolio short, so that if there is a change in interest rates, the prices on the bonds won't fluctuate too much.
You hear a lot about diversity. Is that part of your strategy when you're talking about this, keeping things diverse?
Yes, it's very diverse, and we have a lot of positions, probably 170 roughly positions, so we keep them small in size. We do on a variety of asset classes, so diversity is definitely a key component.
So how do you decide what securities to buy?
We have both a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. So we have some very senior, high-level investment professionals in the company that sit on committees, and they make decisions on what asset class to invest in, whether it's corporate bonds or treasuries or asset backs or mortgage securities. So they make these high-level decisions on where there's value and what asset class is most valuable. And then we also have a bottom-up approach where we have a deep team of credit analysts that follow individual securities, and they can make recommendations on what securities have value, what securities don't have value, and they meet with management, they visit companies. I still do credit work, and we listen to conference calls, and we spend a lot of time visiting with these companies and meeting with their management. So the combination of that top-down approach and that bottom-up approach helps us pick the right securities for the portfolio.
You talk about meeting within your organization, but Federated also travels to West Virginia very often to meet with our investment professionals here at the state level, to meet with Treasurer Perdue, keeping him abreast of everything that's going on. Talk a little bit about why you guys travel to the state so often and why it's helpful for you to meet with us investment professionals on a one-on-one basis.
It's important to manage investors' expectations because all else being equal, once you've managed somebody's money, it's about managing their expectations, helping them to understand the returns that you've achieved in the context of the risk controls that they've indicated they must accept. And so that's why it's important to us that the treasurer understand just what's going on in the portfolio at all times so that he can be the best possible fiduciary for local governments. And the local governments themselves have these types of questions. It's wonderful here in West Virginia, the interest that the public officials take in the money management process.
And you meet with the board as well. You come to many of the board meetings when the BTI meets for quarterly meetings. You're there to answer questions, and you often have pretty in-depth conversations with some of the board members about what you're doing with these securities and with this money.
That's right, Gina. Indeed, we do show up for those meetings and we enjoy the dialogue. A lot of questions are asked, but that's how, in the end, understanding is achieved about just what strategies are being employed. So it's a great give and take for us to impart the strategy and just get the feedback. So it happens quarterly. We're not always the manager here quarterly, but we're down here in West Virginia at least that often. So it's always a pleasure.
And we're talking about you visiting West Virginia, but you also work with other states. You touched on this a little bit earlier. Talk about your relationship with other states and how you work with them.
Well, the great thing about understanding the public sector is to know that everybody in government has to achieve results, but they have to do it within very restricted parameters. And so all across the country, we take a look at every state's statutory provisions for investing money, the investment policies that stem from those provisions, and we try to enhance those policies where we can. And the idea is to work in every state that we're hired to create best practices and to function within those practices to produce the very best results. Because we know that while investments go up and down and money can be lost, there isn't a public official I know of who wants to tell his or her constituents that money's been lost. So it's very important to manage expectations, and those relationships are important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, many of the state agencies and local governments, they invest money with the Board of Treasury Investments. So how do you work with participants on the poll, and how does that relationship work as well?
Well, it's important that when a new participant or a current participant who wants to add more money takes interest, that we explain exactly what the pool is intended to do. Gauge their time horizon for investing, make sure that they are looking to use the pool properly, side by side with their money market options, and to really address just how the pool figures into their overall cash management strategy. So that's why we're on the ground frequently one-on-one having those discussions.
All right, Amy and Nick, some great information. We're going to take a quick break right now, but when we return, I'll talk more with our guests about the economy and market conditions. Stay with us.
I want my kids to have a better future than what I did.
It's key to have other people contribute to the 529.
This is a gift that we'll give for a lifetime.
A smart 529 would be an incredible gift for a family member to give to a child.
Yeah, something that would give for decades after the original gift.
I just want to thank you guys for saving a college plan for me.
And it makes it worth it.
Welcome back to Treasury Notes. I'm your host, Gina Joynes. I'm here today with two people who work closely with the West Virginia Board of Treasury Investments. Amy Michaliszyn and Nick Tripodis are with Federated Securities, and they serve as financial advisors for the Board of Treasury Investments. Again, we want to welcome you guys to West Virginia and thank you for being with us today. Before the break, we talked a lot about Federated's role and how you work with the BTI, but I want to talk a little bit more about the economy in general and get a feel for your expertise. A lot of your recommendations to this state, obviously, they depend on the economy and what the economy is doing. So what are your thoughts on the economy right now? Nick, we'll start with you.
Well, first of all, the stock market has had a great run, and people have made a lot of money in the stock market. We've seen unemployment come down gradually, but there has been a drop in the participation rate, so that might be influencing some of the numbers. The housing market has done well, retail sales have done well, but then there's also been some headwinds as well. People are being taxed more, Social Security taxes have gone up, gasoline is still priced high, so kind of a mixed results, but there's a gradual improvement in the economy. As far as in the fixed income world, if you look, interest rates are still very low. And they continue to remain low, and people are having trouble getting yield. So even though rates have gone down and people have made some incremental money in the fixed income world in the past, it might be hard to achieve some of those results in the future because rates are still so low.
Okay, well, how does the current market compare to years past? Because we've seen such a change in recent years.
Well, rates are still very low, but I think as prices have come up, people have made a lot of money in the fixed income market. It might be harder to achieve those returns going forward because we've had such strong returns in the past. So that people can't always expect the same returns going forward as they achieved recently.
All right. Where do you see interest rates going over the next few years? Let's take a little look toward the future, and maybe you could talk toward that a little bit.
Sure. I think when you talk about interest rates, you have to look at short-term rates and longer-term rates. Short-term rates are really driven by the Fed funds rate, and I think they're going to continue to remain low until the Fed decides to make a move. And there's some factors that really participate in that rate, and unemployment is one of the factors. I don't think unemployment has reached the target yet, and there is a quantitative easing program in place by the Fed. They haven't eased up on that program yet, too. So I think the Fed is, for at least the next year and a half or so, until maybe late 2014, early 2015, should remain low in those rates. As far as the intermediate and longer term rates, you could see some upward trend in rates if the Fed does slowly start to ease the quantitative program, which is buying a lot of mortgage-backed securities and agencies.
And Amy, this plays a big part in how, when you guys are dealing with the Board of Treasury Investments, how decisions are made and what some of your recommendations are when you're talking about the economy. That's what it's all about, right?
That's exactly what it's all about. In these yield-starved times, it's so important that our customers take risk prudently and logically, because believe it or not, there are very illogical, risky ways to pursue greater yield. But our job is to make sure that we collaborate with the board and make sure the decisions stay on the side of prudence.
Do you see that a lot, the panic effect, when people start to watch the numbers very closely on the market, and then maybe there is a sense of panic when they see numbers going up or down?
I think that could be the case. And I think the Fed, with keeping rates so low, has forced people to take a little bit more risk, and maybe a little bit more risk than they should take at times.
How is the value of the U.S. dollar holding up in this global economy?
I think it's held up very well. The Fed has been very accommodating in their monetary policy, but if you look at the other large developed economies, the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan, the European Central Bank, they've been accommodating too. So at that point, it becomes a picture of global health, and the U.S. global health lines up well versus some of those other developed countries. So people that are looking to make an investment in currency, in a developed currency, look at the U.S. and see it as an attractive alternative. So it has remained strong in this global economy.
All right. Well, a lot of our viewers, they don't necessarily work in state government, but we do have a very variety of people who watch our show. So I just want to talk a little bit about this to the masses. Can you give us some thoughts on personal investment and this low rate environment that we're looking at right now?
Sure, I think people need to keep an open mind to both fixed income and equity securities, depending on their time horizon and risk appetite. Some people are afraid of the fluctuations in the equity market, but I think in this low rate environment, there should be both an equity and a fixed income component to their overall portfolio strategy. And then depending on other, taxes or other factors, adjust their portfolio accordingly. But I think in this low rate environment, you do have to take a little extra risk to get some incremental yield.
Amy, do you have any advice to the general public on what they need to be watching or just how they need to be reacting when they're looking at the market?
Stay calm. Who knows what is ultimately going to happen? But diversify, diversify, diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. As cliche as that sounds, it's so true. And seek professional money management whenever possible. Use diversified mutual funds. Take prudent approaches to seeking long-term results.
Let's talk a little bit about going with professionals, because as we said earlier, I just want to revisit this a little bit, the Board of Treasury Investments relies on Federated as an advisor to help with their concerns and to help seek advice. And I think it's so important on the state level to make sure that we are looking to you for your expertise, because again, looking to some of the leaders out there who know what's going on in the market and know how to navigate in these uncertain times. Why do you think that is so important that you're doing it on the state level and people should do it on the personal level as well?
Professional money management can benefit everyone. We all have a day job. Everybody is an expert at something, but just because people are smart and experienced in their own trade does not mean that knowledge transfers to investing. And so seek help, seek it wisely, know what you're paying for, and diversify.
You know, we had a lot of problems with the market years ago. When you look at the way things are now, are you pleased with how things are rebounding? I mean, I know you're probably never completely satisfied, but is it better than you expected, or is it worse than you expected?
I think it's better than expected. If you look at corporate earnings, they still remain strong. Defaults are low in high yield corporations, so I think it's doing well. There was a couple years where the market was a little bit rough, but it really bounced back. The stock market is at historic highs. Defaults are at very low levels. So I think the market is doing very well.
All right. And do you have any other thoughts about just the market in general and what people need to do when they're looking at their own investment portfolios?
I think if you're looking at a bond portfolio like the short-term bond fund, corporate securities and some securities that have a little extra credit risk is a prudent decision. And I think if you look at the government treasury rates, they're just so low. And even though there are people that are very conservative and don't want to take that risk, I think the earnings are strong, and that extra risk, you can be rewarded for a slightly incremental risk. And this fund is very high quality. So once again, the companies that we are buying are very highly rated, Fortune 500 type companies and names that everybody would recognize. So it's a good decision.
All right, and before we go, we have some viewers who've just joined us. Just reiterate again what Federated does and why you guys are in a partnership with the West Virginia Board of Treasury Investments, Amy.
Sure. Federated is a professional money management firm. We're one of the top 10 mutual fund companies in the country. We manage money for a variety of institutions, have a very strong presence in the public sector, and a lot of those factors converge to make us a great partner with the West Virginia Board of Treasury Investments. We really enjoy working with the state on a short-term bond pool that all of the local governments here in West Virginia have an opportunity to use for their own assets.
And you often, as we talked about earlier, meet with some of these governments and some of these entities out there that are having questions about what they should do. You said they're very engaged. They
are. We enjoy meeting with them. People are just so yield starved right now, looking for solutions, and we just try to engage and offer perspective on the market and help them to be confident with the decisions they're making.
All Right. And of course, people can go to our website. The Board of Treasury Investments has its own website. That's wvbti.com. They can go there if they have some questions or if they just want to find out more about what the Board of Treasury Investments is about. As I said, Treasurer John Perdue, he's the chairman of the board, but we have a full board and a full staff that you work with on a daily basis. Talk a little bit more before we go about your relationship just with the people who work for the BTI.
Well, it's an incredible group of professionals. Everybody has been finally chosen. They have excellent credentials and incredible work ethic, and they're doing a great job for the state, for the local governments, and ultimately the people of West Virginia. It's a pleasure and a privilege to work with them. They treat us well and always enjoy good conversations with us, so we're happy to be here.
Any final thoughts before we go, just on your relationship with the Board of Treasury Investments?
It's a great group, as Amy mentioned, and Federated is has a very experienced team. We work very hard on the account to make sure we make the right investment decisions, and it's a great relationship, and we look forward to a continuing relationship going forward.
Well, we're so glad to have you join us today. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Amy Michaliszyn, Nick Tripodis from Federated, we welcome you to come back whenever you like, and we'd love to have another discussion with you about the market conditions and your role with the BTI. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Well, that's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us today for our show. Remember, you can always catch the latest news and information from the State Treasurer's Office on the go. You can follow us on Facebook. We're also on Twitter. Or don't forget to check out our blog for financial information. You can connect with the Treasurer's Office today. Visit us at wvtreasury.com. We are keeping you informed on the Library Television Network. I'm Gina Joynes with the Office of West Virginia State Treasurer John Perdue.